little bit of explanations, I think, of this holiday are useful. This Thursday, this past Thursday, was the actual date of the festival of Corpus Christi, which means the body of Christ. And it is now very frequent occurrence that the festival is celebrated on the Sunday thereafter, and therefore we have at least included the procession. Now, this is a holiday that comes from the Middle Ages in what now is Belgium. At that time, I think it was probably the Netherlands, and which was a miraculous vision to a holy nun who came to be known as Sister Juliana of Liège, because this occurs in the city of Liège. Liège is the capital of the Wallon country in Belgium. That is that part of Belgium that speaks French. You know, they have a bilingual country of the French language and the Flemish language, but Liège is of the French language. And she had a vision while looking out at the full moon, which is also quite interesting. She looked out at the full moon, and the moon changed in the sky in front of her as the shape of the Blessed Sacrament of the white host in its receptacle. And she had the revelation that this was given to her in order to promote the notion that henceforth, once a year, there should be a special festival which is dedicated to the Blessed Sacrament of the altar, and that and she even had a plan how to organize it, so that you need to. I have been in the Cathedral of Liège, and it's a magnificent Gothic cathedral. But you can imagine, let's say, that if you are a congregant out near the entrance, and the place is full of people, that you probably won't see the Blessed Sacrament at all. And so the idea was to take the consecrated sacrament out into the city, so that the people in the city would have a chance to be close to it, and to thereby facilitate the worship of the Blessed Sacrament, which then came to pass, and the ceremony that they worked out is that usually Liège has a bishop, of course, so probably the bishop brings the Blessed Sacrament in the monstrance with the assistants who ring the bells and so forth, and they take them out to the 4 directions of the city, the 4 gates, east, west, north, and south. And there they give the blessing to the city and to the countryside outside. Needless to say, you go to Liège on that day, you're going to have a traffic jam. Very big holiday. And this, of course, has spread all over the world, wherever the Catholic Church was. And it is a very wonderful holiday. I have there are 2 places where the worship of the Blessed Sacrament on Corpus Christi that I participated in, that stick in my mind. One is in my family home in northern Hungary. When I was quite little, we left that habitat when I was about 7 years old, and we had our own family chapel, about half the size of this room. And so every year we didn't have a chapel, and there was a priest shortage even at that time, but so we always, the big arrangements were made, and the route of the procession coming out of the chapel was made. There were 4 stations in which the procession stopped, and they were the east, west, north, south, and at each one of those they built a little altar, all filled with flowers, and this is, of course, the beginning of summer, so a great deal of floral glory would be present, and then the procession would stop at each one of those, some prayers were recited, and the blessings to the 4 directions were given, and then was taken back into. And of course, everybody from the neighborhood came, all the people who worked for us, agricultural people and so on, they were all there. And the little girls were beautifully dressed up in their lacy dress and so forth, and they had baskets with flower leaves, I think primarily rose leaves. So they would walk in front of the sacrament, throwing so that the sacrament and its carrier would not stop just on the dirt, but on the flowers. So it was very, very beautiful. And the bells were ringing, and you name it. Anyway, and of course I always looked forward to that, and I kept myself close to the area where the procession would take place. The second and somewhat more grand occasion was when for almost 6.5 years after I left my home country, I lived in a town in Upper Austria in the Alps, which is called Hallstatt. Now and then you will see it on television or on some other places, because it is one of the most spectacular tourist centers in Austria. And they keep the Corpus Christi procession there. The center of Hallstatt is a big lake, and around it there are 2 little towns which each have a church. The Hallstatt church itself, which is the main one, and the town of Obertraun, where my ancestors, my great-grandfather, great-grandmother, and then subsequently my father are buried, and then the town of Hallstatt itself, which has so little soil that they couldn't build a cemetery, because they would, as they did at one time, they would have to periodically take the dead out of the graves to have enough room for a new interment. And so now those who can, like we did, we have buried our dead on the other side of the lake, in the town of Obertraun, where my great-grandparents, and by now I think probably my great-aunt by now too, were buried. So, but the Corpus Christi celebration in Hallstatt is known all over Europe, and people come from everywhere, particularly in the Catholic world. Usually about 5 to 6 big boats. And these boats, you have to envision them, they are somewhat like not quite, but somewhat resembling the gondolas of Venice. They have a front that kind of comes up like this, and then the back is flat. The German word for them is Platten. And so these boats are filled with flowers, and in the middle one has a baldacchino and the flags and so, and the priest, a poor old priest who was way past retirement age, but he brought the Blessed Sacrament in the monstrance down from the Catholic Church, which is on top of the mountain, into the boats, and then they row the boats out to the middle of the lake, and from there they give the blessing to the 4 directions, where both the Catholic and the Lutheran churches ring the bells like nobody's business. You know, this is a folk festival. The women wear this. That they only have that in that particular valley. The women wear a head dress, which looks like a Roman helmet. You know, comes up and she's gold colored, and only worn really on very important occasions. So there are the gold-headed women, the flags, everything, and even from the mountain tops, the surrounding. You have to envision this. The lake of Hallstatt and the town around it are. It's almost all water, so it is like a little Venice. Well, we didn't live in the water. We are not King Neptune's children, but so all the people are out there praying, and then the bells are being rung, and they also, the Alpine people are they like noise, because when they make a loud noise, then it resounds throughout all the mountains. This is a lake that is surrounded by high mountains on both sides. So when the mortars are being shot off, the cannons, to celebrate also, that it resounds back and forth between the mountains, and it makes quite an impressive sound, let us see. Then later on, the priest takes the Blessed Sacrament to the church, and then it's all over. But it's a big, big affair. People come not only from the rest of Austria, like Vienna and Graz and Innsbruck and so, but they come from all over Europe. It's a very, very famous occasion. So I was there and assisted at that for a good many years, because we lived in Hallstatt and trying to recollect. It's sort of 6.5 to 7 years that we lived there after we left our own country. So it's a very, very impressive occasion, and it certainly calls attention to something that is worth paying attention to, and that is that if we accept these theological teachings, that the Corpus Christi festival brings into live action the fact that the Lord has left us a miraculous object behind, which he referred to as his body and his blood, and that this is really a every time that we approach the Blessed Sacrament, that it is a great and miraculous event. Now, I would keep you here all morning to your discomfort if I mentioned even a few of them, but I am aware by way of personal experience and experience of my friends of really amazing and miraculous events that have occurred in connection with the sacrament of the altar, the bread and the wine. So we really have something there, just because I don't know, Jesus doesn't jump out of the chalice or out of the monstrance. That doesn't mean that there is a mystical presence there. Say I could regale you and bore you here, going on and on of the strange events that I, little me, have witnessed in that regard. I'll just mention one, no more than one. In my home church where I was ordained a priest in Laguna Beach, I am not even sure whether I was a priest already, but I was either deacon or subdeacon of the Mass, assisting my ordaining Bishop Wadley. And so that had a high altar with steps going up, and then we were coming down with the sacrament to the communion rail. Was a little different from other places, but a very artistic place. If you ever go to Laguna Beach, go on a street, a rather short street that goes down toward the ocean, Park Avenue, and on Park Avenue, facing the street, so it's easy to see, is the Church of St. Francis. And behind it is a bigger Episcopal church. But anyway, in that particular church, I was either deacon or subdeacon of the Mass, I don't know for sure, but we were coming down with the celebrant bishop, the deacon and subdeacon to the right and the left of it, and I would swear every oath for it took quite a distance from the high altar to come down to where the communion was served. Bishop had the host in his hand with the chalice, and all of a sudden the communion wafer left his hand and was levitating, flying in the air for, I would say, about as far as maybe one, two, three, maybe about the fourth row, just flew in the air, and I stood there. And we could see it because we were so close to it. But anyway, that is levitating host for that distance with no support that qualifies as a miracle. Even some of the cardinals in Rome would accept that. In any event, things of that sort do occur because it is a miraculous object. But its purpose is not just to fly around the church into people's mouths, which is what happened at that time, but to act as a very, very important and very powerful fortifier and sanctifier inside of us. So that it's important that we should be in a clear mind when we take the Holy Communion, but we should, allowing for that, it is a good thing to partake of it as often as possible, for which reason we always serve communion with in our Eucharist. In any event, that Saint Juliana and her inspiration called attention. Listen, guys, you have something very important here, so use it to the optimum advantage, and let the poor old ladies who were not strong enough to walk to the cathedral have a sight of it, and the children who may not have come, and so it has become, and every church of Catholic Christendom since then had a Corpus Christi, body of Christ celebration, and still does. So let's keep that in mind, that we may be smaller, we don't have millions of people coming when a Pope dies, and so forth, but we do have the conviction that we have a great treasure, and that this treasure, like all mysteries, was given to us by the Lord Himself, who is after all an embodiment of deity, and as such is a very, very important and beautiful thing. So the Corpus Christi, body of, it's not just I often say it's not just a town in Texas, but it is body of Christ, and so keep that in mind, whichever way you interpret those mystical statements. But we have something very unusual that has throughout history has been known to be really miraculous, and that we also have the privilege. Of course, it's up to us. We do have on an optional basis confession and absolution, but it's not very often used. But it's very important that we purify ourselves within, and we don't have any distracting or bad thoughts, and realize that something very important and very sacred enters our own fleshly temple. So that is the meaning, Corpus Christi, the body of Christ. And actually I have witnessed some beautiful events with Corpus Christi. When I remember I could just go on and on, which I'm not going to do incidentally. But let's say I saw the Corpus Christi celebration in Budapest, outdoors, on the Buddha side, where the mountain rises. They erected an altar in the side of the mountain on Corpus Christi. There was an altar with 6 candles, everything, the bells were ringing, and our beloved national hero, Cardinal Mindszenty, in his long Kappa Magna with the ermine and his cardinal robe came up. You could see them coming around the hill from the other side with the cross. And he said the Corpus Christi Mass there, and that was also a very, very inspiring moment, particularly since we knew that what we were enjoying there would probably not be enjoyed very long. And I think that 2 years from there was no Corpus Christi. If you wanted Corpus Lenin, well, maybe then you could go to the Kremlin in Moscow. And I don't think even too many Russians did by that. But in any event, this is an important thing, because a religion that doesn't have mysteries. You can look up mystery in any encyclopedia or so forth. But a religion that doesn't have mysteries is not much of a religion. Because religion, religio, means to join you together, join you back to something above. And so that's why these religious exercises that are all mental, you got to think of Jesus, you got to think, that's not it. There's something that as real can be. But you need another eye, like the Hindus have, like a third eye to see what is there. But it is there, and let's be very grateful for that. That even in this little place, not so. This is not as little as all that. But in any event, even this little house of worship in the Hollywood Hills, which bears the name of Annie Besant, who used to, Annie Besant gave sermons in the Liberal Catholic Church over on Argyle Avenue whenever she came to town. And so there was a suspicion that maybe she had been ordained the priest. Bishop Wedgwood would have done it. The Leadbeater would rather die than ordain a woman, even if it was Annie Besant. But let's say, we have a mystery. And the mystery is something that you can't figure out. And if you are so obtuse that you will not go to the mystery because you can't figure it out, then I would say that you are quite a bit on the stupid side. Because we have to know that with our head we can't figure out everything. And that also there are faculties of discernment which we can exercise, which are different from ordinary cognition. So let us be happy that we have our mystery, we can partake of it, and that whenever we have a Eucharist here, if it's feasible, that we can partake of it, because the strengthening, the sanctifying, the guidance that we receive that way, I can tell you with 93 years old and having had communion about on the average once a week since I was 7 years old, that it is a great and wonderful blessing, and I always felt so much better, so much more inspired and blessed when I did throughout many years. So let's keep that in mind and bring that with us from Corpus Christi. And now we are coming to the end of June, and it's also interesting that the Church in turn fixed the date when Corpus Christi's holidays would be, right in close proximity to the, what is it? It is the summer solstice. So the summer solstice, the blazing sun, which the Egyptians already regarded as gone, comes down to us in a more direct way at this time, and even the celestial bodies and the sun calls attention to the fact that something very important is happening at this time, and that we should be grateful. And so may the mystery of that which hangs twixt heaven and earth descend upon us and remain with us always. By the way, today is one of those very few days when the head of our parish, Father Jerry, had taken a little vacation, and he is in the Bahamas, or he went to the Bahamas if he got there. So he has done tremendous amount of work and invested a tremendous amount of his time and his efforts in this place. We should always be grateful for that. So he he's entitled to go and see the Bahama Mama. See?